And I learned this, by the way, from one of my clients 11 years ago, my first year in business. They were the loveliest people ever. I couldn't get over how easy they were to deal with. So as we're signing the judgment package, I said, look, I have to ask, how are you able to be so nice? You're atypical. They said, oh, it took time. We weren't like this a year and a half ago. We were the typical, we hate you, we blame you, we couldn't talk to one another. And all of a sudden we said, but that's not who we are. And that's not the statement we want to make to each other leaving this marriage.
The Love and Order Podcast with your host, LawyerLimor. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.
Now, I know we're not on the rooftop at the Waldorf Astoria or at the bar at Javier's, but Judith Weigle, I'm so happy you're here because you are one of those secret weapons in the divorce space that is underutilized. And I know you have a lot of very cute and fitting names for yourself. You have Amicable Divorce Expert, Divorce Diplomat, and then obviously Divorce Mediator. I know you as also a podcast host. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm so happy to be here just because I've interviewed you 3 times now, mostly celebrity interviews, which you were great about. And then, yes, we did dine luxuriously. We all love that atmosphere. But here you are with your own podcast. I couldn't be happier.
Thank you so much. You were one of my inspirations for the podcast because I think it was our first episode that we did together on the Amicable Divorce Podcast, where it was either before or after, where I wanted to pick your brain about a podcast and all those things. And I think your advice was really just start the podcast and it'll go where it's going to go.
Absolutely. And you're so good with social media, though, which is a key component in reaching people. So right. It's your personality. It's the fact that you're a lawyer, but you're a lawyer with a sense of humor. I mean, who doesn't love that?
Thank you so much.
Love that? And I love all of your court TV TikTok stuff. I think that's phenomenal. So it's really good to be here.
Thank you so much. So tell our audience your path into the divorce space, because you are a paralegal and you are a mediator, right? So how did you even decide to get into the divorce space?
Life happened. That's how I got here. I was in the entertainment industry all my life, loved it, everything I did about it. In the circus, worked with celebrity performers, did major events in Los Angeles. My black book of celebrities, homes that I've been to, unbelievable. But somehow I had these female attorneys about 14, 15 years ago came to me and said, Judy, you have a really good personality for mediation. You should consider it. Well, the first 2 attorneys, I didn't consider it. I had no idea what it was. I'm Miss Entertainment, and that's what I'm going to do. It was the 3rd person, the former owner of this company, Divorce Resource Incorporated, sitting next to me at Contempo Nails on Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills, who said, personality, mediation, consider it. I said, okay, 3rd time. When anything comes to you 3 times, you have to pay attention. It's kind of like the 5-second rule for you're allowed to pick food up off the floor. Well, this is the 3 mention rule. When something comes to you 3 times, do look into it. And so I did, and I absolutely loved it. I went down to the city attorney's office. That's where I got my first training. And it was baptism by fire, because in the city attorney's office in Los Angeles, they have this program called the Dispute Resolution Program. It's grant funded, therefore it's free to the residents of LA County. And in order to get a certificate from the city attorney's office as a good mediator, you have to invest 160 hours at the office, on the phone, fielding phone calls, calling the other party, engaging them to want mediation, and then you schedule the mediation. And it was the gamut. It was landlord-tenant, it was business, it was attorney-client fee disputes. The only thing they couldn't do is child custody, because that's very specialized, as you know. So after that, I put pedal to the metal. In 4 months, I got my certificate. At that time, there was space in the suite where the former owner had her office. And I said, well, I'll rent there, because I just moved back from Palm Springs. I needed another office, and I thought this will be great. I was able to observe how family law worked, even though I was doing other types of mediations and still booking entertainment. And as fate would have it, the owner got sick. She had to go for a knee surgery. And I said, well, I can take over your clients. Your assistant knows how to get all the forms done. So we can hold the fort for you, so to speak, until you come back. And LaMor, unfortunately, she never came back. That was 2012, and complication after complication. And I bought the business, and here I am.
Wow.
And then I just expanded it, a little bit more with the podcast and public speaking. And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What an interesting story, because, a lot of people who are in family law, they want out. They want to go into entertainment. They want to go into something else that they think is more fun, right? Quote unquote fun. Everything is work. Let's be
everything is work.
Everything is work. So how did you, it's obvious there was a business there that you were engaged with that was obviously thriving, and probably just everything went up from there. But how did you make the decision to just let go of that entertainment piece of everything for you?
I couldn't handle it. I didn't have the time. So family law started taking more and more of my time. And if I wanted to be good at it, you have to remain educated. You go to as many seminars and workshops humanly possible. You network with people. You join networking associations that make sense for your business. So for us, it's therapists, because we need them for our clients.
Right.
Mediation. For me, both the bar as a paralegal, and then the mediation associations, and then just your regular general networking associations of provisors and, this, that, and the other thing. I just didn't have the time. And it was okay, because I like to climb mountains. I don't like staying in the same industry and just growing within that industry and not adding anything on. And there was really nothing else to add to the entertainment component. I'd done it for 30, 35 years. And so this was fresh and new still. And that's why I let it go and just went full force into family law. And by the way, to address entertainment, I sarcastically said, this is a very dark form of entertainment, because first of all, you don't want to make fun of people's pain. Believe me, I've been divorced. I know what it feels like, and mine was totally amicable. It was still a year of grieving and sadness and transition, and I didn't have kids. We didn't have anything to divide. It doesn't matter. It's very, very emotional. But LaMor, the stories that you hear from people, what a window on life. In our regular daily lives, we would never be able to meet people and be in situations that we are confronted with on a daily basis, right?
Yes, 100%. Sometimes I think, wow, if I could just make content based on the phone calls I have with people, wow, God only knows where I'd be, because that is where all the juice is. The celebrity stuff, we only know 10% of what's going on. The rest of it, we speculate, and they're probably doing this behind the scenes and that behind the scenes, and this might happen. But the real lives of regular people, even like you said, even when things are amicable, if they're going through a divorce or some sort of separation, wow, it is so intense. And, we're responsible for making sure that they navigate it in a way that they come out the other side still whole, right? Because they're so broken no matter what. They're so broken when they first come to us. And for those who don't know, once you file for divorce, you don't have to go to court. I think people don't realize that. I have clients who file and their next question is, okay, so when is our court date? Do we deal with this in court?
Yeah.
And I have to explain to them, here are your options. Court is the last resort. I would hope that no one goes to court in our family law cases, but sometimes if you cannot come to an agreement amicably between the parties, first it starts with them, right? I always say first it starts with the two of you. If you guys can come to an agreement and you both go to your attorneys and we can draft it, or to a paralegal and we can draft it for you, that is best case scenario. But you should know the law. Speak to someone who knows the law so you know what you're getting into, right? Right. And after that, it's have the attorneys negotiate. Another option is mediation, which is what you do. And
I was going to say, even with mediation and with my process, my very simple process of filing, they still ask me, when are we going to go to court? It's just ingrained that this is part of and it's not.
Yep. You don't ever have to go to court. You can figure out every single term in your divorce and sign a final judgment without ever going to court. So what was your philosophy on divorce before you got divorced?
If you need it, you need it. I mean, I grew up Roman Catholic, so there was a point in the Catholic religion where they allowed divorce. It was either you had to have an annulment in order to stay part of the faith, or you couldn't get divorced. Well, that's horrible. And there's many other cultures and religions that won't allow for divorce. We have that little caveat here in California, legal separation. That kind of addresses if you're in a situation and part of what makes up your life will not allow for divorce. Legal separation is your key. You can't get remarried, but you can at least stop the bleeding, divide your stuff, deal with the co-parenting plan, all that stuff. And even I wanted to comment on one thing you said, and that was, even if you really can't use somebody like me, if you have to use lawyers because the communication is so difficult between the spouses that you really want to get things done, the attorneys can help you negotiate a settlement much better than a judge will do, because the judge doesn't know the case as well as the attorneys. You're just numbers in the courtroom. And if you get a good judge, maybe, but there's too many judges, I'm sorry to say, that I'm not comfortable with when I see orders come out. I'm just not comfortable. So keep it out of court. So what was the actual question about mediation?
Your approach to divorce before you got divorced. And I love it. It's a judgment-free way of thinking. It's, if you need it, you need it. And I've always been of that mindset too. And getting into the space, I kind of, a lot of people say it's the attorneys who drive the divorce and make it crazy, and people lose their homes because of the attorneys. And what they don't understand is we don't make moves unless the client gives us the okay. So it's not, I've seen attorneys who do things that I cannot believe. And those are the ones who, even when I'm forced to network with them, I kind of just don't really,
Not all attorneys are created equal, LaMor. They're not like you. I, in my little way, if I'm working with, say, the respondent to file only, that's my job, to file only, not to represent, and there's an attorney representing the petitioner, I'm very limited in what I can say and do other than just serve things on that person. But I get a wonderful window on how attorneys behave. There are things that I look for and pray I never see that will tell me where the heart and soul of the attorney really is. Is this just an attorney that sees dollar signs? Or is this an attorney that sees human beings in front of them? And this is what we have to do, but we don't have to do all this other stuff.
Right.
And then, okay, we're talking about family law. We're talking about the family, especially if there's children. The family lives on in a different context. What is this issue about fighting? What are you fighting for? Why does the word fight have to be part of the equation? You're not these people. The lawyers don't live their lives. And these are human beings. I would like to see a more helpful dialogue, different words used. Let's just stick with representation. I will do my best at representing you, at looking at the situation and making sure that according to the law, you get the best the law can provide. But let's keep in mind, if there are children, that you are going to be either a positive or a negative influence on this family moving forward, depending on how you position yourself as an attorney. And I think you're great. I love your energy, but I understand who you are and your intention. And that makes me feel really good about you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very disheartening to see the attorneys who, they're in it just to make money. They don't care about what happens with the family. And sometimes you can see an attorney's name and I know them and you know them, and we have to prepare our client to understand the game that's going to be played by the other side and to not feed into it. And it is so hard because sometimes I often hear from, when that's happening, I hear from clients that the other side is being so aggressive. We need to be more aggressive. And I am 100% not on that boat.
Thank
aggressive only when you need to be, and surprise, you rarely need to be. It doesn't work that way. That will not get you to a positive resolution, because at a certain point, we're out of it. Right? They sign the final judgment. We withdraw from the case. You're done with whatever document, if it's a stipulation, a full judgment, whatever it is you're drafting for them, we're done and we're out. It's not really our problem anymore after we're done, right? But they have to deal with the consequences. And I constantly have to remind some of my clients of that. A lot of them get it from the beginning, because even during my consultations now, I'm very clear about my approach. But you've now been doing this also for over a decade now. So what is it? What is your philosophy, and how do you approach things? How do people find you? I know that you have a whole process, and I want to hear about it. I saw the cake on one of your one-pagers that you sent me. Tell us about that.
Okay, so various ways people find me. Word of mouth. I just got 2 new calls in from friends who obviously used me.
Yes.
So that's great. And years ago, when I took this business over, there were open cases that needed to be closed at some point in time. And then again, the marketing. Before social media became, such a thing, you did your regular networking by joining groups that would make sense to your profession. So that's how that keeps going. In terms of my approach, it's been 11 years of watching how this works, better versus worse, whether it's mediation or just filing. So a year ago, I decided to add professional speaking to my portfolio. And I wanted to go out and specifically work with human resource departments to provide a service to their divorcing employees that would help them not only focus more on work, because when you're getting divorced, and you obviously know this, you work all day, I work all day, but so do our clients if they have jobs. So now, are we asking them to put the divorce work inside of their jobs? Yes, but I wasn't really thinking of it as a problem. All of a sudden, one day, a few years ago, I'm talking to a client, and she was telling me how stressed and burned out she was. And she was at work while she was talking to me. And all of a sudden, I said, hold on a minute. This can't be. These people, how are they even holding it together enough to go to work and then raise a family, or just go home and be a human. There has to be another way. So I created what was called Recipe for a Heart-Healthy Divorce. It's very positive. It harkens on food because my first love is food. Or I wouldn't spend everything I make on food, regardless of what it costs. So Kathy Memel, who introduced us,
Yes.
a psychotherapist, has not stopped talking about what the truffle fries cost at the Waldorf Astoria rooftop. To this day, she talks about this.
Kathy, we send you enough clients where you don't need to talk about.
Yes, she does quite well. And she eats all the time, and she buys many things when we go out to eat.
I love
that price point of the truffle.
I love her. You know, the last time I saw her, I think we had fried chicken sandwiches at the Henry. Fried chicken sandwiches with Kathy Memel. Dr. Kathy Memel.
Who's busy all day long, every day.
All day long. All day long.
She's too funny. Okay. So, recipe. So yes, after my favorite thing in life, food, there are 4 ingredients. And the first 2 are ultimately the most important ingredients known to mankind. And the third one, it refers to what I just talked about. I want to start with the first one. And I think you're going to agree. Settle the emotional divorce before filing for the legal divorce. So yes, right?
Yes.
There are 2 divorces in everybody's life. Once the idea of divorce is discussed, you have to go through a whole grieving process. There are 7 steps in the grieving process. So this woman, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is a Swiss-American psychiatrist, wrote the book On Death and Dying. I mean, it's a very famous book. And she lists the 5 stages of grief when you have somebody pass away. Well, there are 2 more stages of grief if you're going through divorce, because unfortunately your spouse is still living. And you might have to co-parent with that person. So you better get it together. You better get through the grief. And the 2 added ones are fear and guilt. Those are the 2 added. And so you have to process. It's a huge issue. You must process, especially if it's, been a substantial marriage. And once you go through the last stage, which is blame, if you can get blame off the table and just accept it as, okay, it's a life event. I can either let it destroy me, or I can use it as a gateway to something better, a better life. That's where you need to be. It's a new beginning. And if you can look at it like that, then you're good to go. And it'll be a learning lesson. So you've got to get through the emotions. You can't go, it can't be this. Honey, I think it's time that we talk about maybe getting divorced. What are you talking about? You want divorced? I'll take everything from you. You'll get nothing. I'll take custody of the kids. And by the way, I'm going to go file tomorrow. Okay. That's not the way you get divorced.
Nope.
It can be a shock. It's generally not a shock. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you think you have the perfect marriage, like an attorney colleague of mine who lives in another state. She was telling me that very wealthy, 2 kids. He was in the stock market business in New York, very, very wealthy. She was working as an attorney in family law. One day there's a knock at the door. And it's a sheriff or some legal person with some paperwork saying, I'm sorry, you have to vacate. The federal government has now taken over your home because he just got arrested by the Securities and Exchange policeman.
Oh, that's nice.
For like horrible things. And she had no idea. And she's an attorney filing jointly, had no idea. That's a shock. It is not a shock to know that you're not connecting in your relationship. So this is the normal relationship next. That was the unusual situation. And it does happen. The normal relationship situation is, okay, the last few years, the intimacy isn't there. We're not really talking. We're like in robot mode, going to work, having dinner, going to bed, that kind of thing. And someone starts looking in a different direction for another relationship, and that becomes, the impetus for the divorce. People are shocked when they hear the words, "I want divorced," even though they know their relationship has not been the best. That's the normal divorce, I think. And so you have to go through the emotions before you file, because your brain can't do both. You can't make sound legal decisions, Limor, upset. Because then we worry. All these clauses in the settlement agreement, I'm of sound mind, I've thought this over, I'm all good. Oh no, that all changes once the divorce is final. Well, wait a minute, because now you have the time to breathe. Now you can actually think, and now you want to change.
Right.
So that's a tough one.
What a good point, because let me just say this, because if you don't handle those things first, the bill with your attorney or your mediator will be double or triple what it would be had you taken care of those things. Because as you know, a lot of clients use us as their therapists, right? And you can't help but feel bad. And the only advice that we really could give them is, we are handling this part of things. Stop worrying about X, Y, and Z. We are handling it. But nothing we're going to say is going to get you through that grieving process. We're just one little piece of the puzzle. You need to handle your life and your future and all of those things. We're here to facilitate paperwork. We're here to make sure that everything's done in your best interest, as far as the money, the kids, the this, the that. And listen, again, if we end up in court and you put things in the judge's hands, they're going to read what? A 10-page double-spaced document that tells them about 25 years of your life? Probably not. Probably the last year. They won't know your kids' names. They might give you a schedule that doesn't even actually work for your family, but you're the ones who chose to go there because there were things in the background that you didn't check before taking that route.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at these declarations, these statements, these attachments that go with the filings, and I'm like, well, when does the judge even have time to read it? Can they even process it? I mean, how much can you do? How much diligence can you perform as a judge with the very limited time you have with each case? But the more you see people in court, I guess it gets more familiar, the same case. But no, and you wouldn't even need to go there if you were able to. So I'm just going to use able to. Take that time to process the emotion. And even if anybody listening has already filed and this makes perfect sense to you, you can put a pin in it.
Absolutely.
You can say to your attorney or the other person's attorney, if you're representing yourself, I just need a month. I just need a couple months. And I will be back, I promise you, but I'm no good to myself or you in my emotional condition. And if you actually say, I'm emotional, well, of course, what other attorney wants you to sign anything? Well, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. Or you can ask for a continuance, right? Can't you do that if you're just not together enough to be reasonable?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So that's that. So that's one thing. And I learned this, by the way, from one of my clients 11 years ago, my first year in business. They were the loveliest people ever. I couldn't get over how easy they were to deal with. So as we're signing the judgment package, I said, look, I have to ask, how are you able to be so nice? You're atypical. They said, oh, it took time. We weren't like this a year and a half ago. We were the typical, we hate you, we blame you, we couldn't talk to one another. And all of a sudden we said, but that's not who we are. And that's not the statement we want to make to each other leaving this marriage. Now, they didn't have children, so a little easier, but still they recognized that they were behaving in a way that was unproductive and it didn't feel good. And they didn't want to be those people. So they went to therapy together so that they could transition out of the marriage. And by the way, there's a thing called discernment counseling. Discernment counseling therapists will take you through why you're getting divorced. So everybody clearly understands the rationale behind their decision and why the relationship isn't clicking anymore. So they can say, oh, okay, we get it. We get it. We get it. We're fine. We're not bad people because we don't want to stay married. That's the other thing. I mean, we take these vows, Limor. And when I was in the music industry producing entertainment for events on the West Side, weddings were, you could send your kids to college if you performed music for weddings, because people spend buku bucks on their weddings, right? They hire celebrities. I did a wedding with Babyface in the day. So we're at the weddings and I'm listening to these vows. This is before the divorce business. And I said, this is completely unrealistic. These vows are unrealistic. I would rather them be different vows. So before I got in the divorce business, I'm rewriting the vows to be more realistic. Okay, second layer of the cake. Learn communication skills for conflict because you're going to need them. People are going to start behaving in ways that they didn't behave before. They're going to start arguing. They're going to start misreading each other's communication. And if you are married to somebody who is a high conflict personality, and you all know who it is, we don't have to really say much more about that. The communication tells it all. You'll either have somebody that's kind of controlling, bullying, can't feel compassion, empathy, or emotion in any way. And in order to get their way, they will send toxic texts, toxic emails, toxic phone calls. You don't need to respond to any of these. It only takes one person to calm it down, and that's the recipient of the toxic communication. And so I always refer to a gentleman named Bill Eddy. You know who he is, the king of conflict communication. He has like 30 books now, divorcing a high conflict personality, co-parenting with a high conflict personality, legal disputes with a high conflict personality. But it only takes one person to learn this method. And there is a method in terms of how to respond, which is don't respond for 24 hours. That's the first lesson. Don't respond for 24, unless it's a child emergency, but then that wouldn't be toxic so much as let's get to the hospital, let's get to the school, let's go get our child. But, if it's just brutalizing you, you don't have to respond. And then when you eventually do respond, it's going to be in a completely different way than you have in the past, and it's going to work. And you're going to teach your spouse a lesson. This even extends to the courtroom. I've known of a couple people who self-represented at their own trial, big ass law firms like Trope and Trope that don't exist anymore, but we're talking $1,000 an hour attorneys.
Yep.
Two people that self-represented and their spouses had that law firm incomparable. They kept their civility, and the judge always sided with them because they didn't pummel the attorney. They didn't pummel their spouse. They handled themselves cordially, thoroughly. It works. It even can work in court. Now, let me ask you this question before we get to the third ingredient. Have you in court been against a toxic attorney and kept it together, very civil, just the facts, ma'am, and that helped your case?
Always. I always make sure that I let the other side look as crazy as possible. And then I make sure to let the court know that they've been acting as crazy as possible throughout the entire case, because judges also don't have the patience for that. They have so many hearings they need to get to. They don't have time for the theatrics. We're there as attorneys. We know the law. We know the relevant facts. It's not a place, as much as people might think it is not a place for drama. The court wants to know if this is about money, give me the numbers. If it's about the children, give me the schedules. If there is something significant that will impact the way the judge is going to make their orders, the way the judge will rule, bring that up. But just because the kid forgot their lead pencil at mom's house and then she didn't give it to dad, or the red shirt didn't come back to dad's house, or whatever it is, the judge doesn't want to hear those things. And a good attorney knows that too. Yeah. Right. A good attorney knows that too. And you have to prepare your clients and let them know that, listen, if we have a hearing before the judge, it might only take 10 minutes. We might not have 2 hours to tell the court the whole story. Right. And that's where the skills of being concise and to the point really will get you far. But no, I've had so many attorneys, they get up out of their chair, they're finger pointing, and the judge is just sitting there. And at the end of the speech from this other attorney, all they say is, I just asked one question. I don't need to know about this and that. I have 10 other families to get to. And when you're the attorney or the litigant who is refocusing the case back to what the judge wants to know about, oh my God, you're almost guaranteed to win. Honestly, you really, really are, because they don't have the patience for it. They don't like to see that. They hate, in my experience, it has never gone well for the other side when they put up these theatrics that have, in my opinion, no place in the courtroom.
So good to know. That really, really is so good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Third ingredient. And this goes back to what I said when I talked to this female client of mine and she was stressed and she was at work. Compartmentalize time so that your divorce does not overcome you. You don't become your divorce. And use your work as a respite from divorce. Just say to everybody involved on your team, whoever you're working with, even your soon-to-be former spouse, I'm not going to be able to address the divorce from morning, 8 to 6 or whatever your working schedule is, because I do have to work. But I am going to address all of your communications, everybody, like later at night, or early in the morning before I go to work, whatever your schedule will handle. So compartmentalizing time is not comfortable to us. We are multitaskers. Before the pandemic, we brought our family business to work and we took our work home. During the pandemic, we had to stay at home, the scene of the crumbling marriage, and everything was blurred. Everything was in one big pot, and we did the best we could, family people, teaching the kids, making sure they went to school and doing work and all that stuff. And, then living with the soon-to-be ex-spouse, knowing that at some point when the courts opened, we would be filing. Very, very difficult situation. The word confidence is important in this, because when you compartmentalize time, you have to be committed to that schedule. If you are committed to that schedule, your stress level will go down, because you don't have to worry about when you're going to get those disclosures done, when you're going to return the emails, the text, whatever. You've already established this is divorce time, this is work time, and by the way, we go into ingredient 4, and this is self-care time.
I love that. So ingredient 3 is all about setting boundaries for yourself, for the people who you've hired, engaged in this process. That's a really, I wish more people were engaged in all of these ingredients, but that's a really powerful one.
Well, hopefully they will be as I bring it to the public. And
yes, you get your hands on all of them.
Yeah, I think this is so extremely important. I even did a workshop about this, a 1-hour workshop on Valentine's Day.
I love that.
It's heart healthy. And people consider Valentine's Day sometimes a tough day if they're getting divorced. And so I wanted to show them the love by showing them how they could start loving themselves again, how they could start appreciating themselves, and how they could approach divorce in a different way.
I love
self-care with laughter. I added the laughter because we don't think of divorce and laughter. Divorce is tough, but no, we we need to be human again. At some point, we need to start functioning as a whole human being. And if you can laugh at your situation, now you have objectivity. Now you can kind of put it in its place. It's not washed all over you. It's that thing there that you're dealing with. So laughter, even the Mayo Clinic, I use this as some of my research, even the Mayo Clinic gives all these reasons, these health reasons why laughter has to be a part of your self-care program. It has to be. Okay, so here's my recommendation for self-care with laughter, especially if you live in LA.
Okay.
Ready? Goat yoga or puppy yoga. So in Santa Monica, they have a yoga studio that does both goat and puppy yoga. So I've been to goat yoga. I have photographs of the goats on top of me.
Oh my God.
And before the class starts, you have to sign a goat waiver that you will not be mad at the studio or the goats if they start nibbling on your stuff, your clothing, or they don't really know where the bathroom is. It's anywhere they decide. We signed those waivers so fast, I can't tell you. Bring on the goats. Bring on the goats.
Did they poop on you?
Puppies, oh my God, they just run all over you.
Any accidents? Any bathroom accidents?
Not on me, but on the girl on the mat next to me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
She just laughed. She didn't care. She just laughed.
That's awesome. I love that.
Takes you out of yourself. So yeah, that's what I have to talk about.
I love that. So the spa, but maybe go with a friend, have more fun, laugh with your friend. I love that. So this is your approach. And do you, when clients come to you for mediation, do you take them through these steps? Do you let them know, this is my philosophy, take care of these things, and we can likely come to a resolution? How do you present it to your mediation clients?
You know what? That's really an interesting approach that you just said that I may have to do now. I do it in parts though. Whatever I see they need, I do it in parts. So I did a mediation last week where it was very raw. The emotions were very raw. She was very, very, very upset. And I said, your emotional level is going to come out in the context of this mediation. And at that point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to talk to you individually. And when the emotion came out and it was the blame and you could tell where the pain was, I took her aside and I just said, there are two divorces. There's the emotional divorce and the legal divorce. And you're in the throes of the emotional divorce. I'm not convinced that the decisions you're going to be making in mediation might be exactly right. I don't know. I just want to ask you, would you like to kind of make decisions and then we'll just wait? And she said, no, I have to get through it. I'm so emotional. I said, okay, you need a therapist then. You actually need somebody to talk to get this out because it has to come out in a constructive way. And she listened. She was in Eastern medicine, so she definitely did listen. She was the right person. But you know what? I think I'm going to present that as a whole. I think I hadn't come to that yet to do that. I talk to people about if you have a job and you're in the office every day, don't respond to me. Wait till the evening. I'm fine dealing with you the evening or early next morning. It's okay. So I kind of get people's schedules. So I know how to interface with them. If they work at home, maybe that's a little different. But when you're in the office, your employer is paying attention to you. Your manager is looking at you and they will know whether you're focused or not. And so I don't want you to be jeopardized either. But yeah, I kind of like presenting that as a whole and saying, this is my philosophy. And are you doing any of these steps, just to be extra helpful to them?
Yeah, I really love that because, mediators, you have your introduction that you give to the parties, usually together, right? As attorneys, we have the consultation and then we get right into the thick of things if they sign up with us. So I've always loved that, in mediation, you can kind of bring the human perspective of everything, that we understand this is your life. We need you to understand at one point we won't be here. Everything we say in mediation is confidential, all of your rules, all of that. I think as attorneys, we need to start doing that too with our clients. I know that some people send their welcome letters and all of that, but I think connecting with the client the same way a mediator does is really, really important, because a lot of the value is just in the dynamic, I think, of the professionals you hire and the litigant, who you are.
Right. I agree with you. I think not to encourage conversation about their emotions, but to be human for them, to let them know that, yes, you're there to handle the legal side of things, but you also understand their pain. And if they need to tell you, can we stop for a little bit? You're open to that.
Right.
Just to introduce, you have to guide me. I don't know what's going on with you, when you're not in communication with me. So if you need to pause, do it.
I love that. And so where can people find you, Judith? I know you're everywhere, but where can people find you?
Well, the name of the company is Divorce Resource Inc. So .com, divorceresourceinc.com. The phone number for those who like to jot things down while they're listening is 310-441-7555. 310-441-7555. And lastly, Judy, Judy, at divorceresourceinc.com.
I love it. And your podcast?
The Amicable Divorce Expert.
I love that. And what's your Instagram again? Amicable Divorce?
I think it's The Amicable Divorce Expert, because they didn't have a limitation on characters like Twitter did.
I love that. And your podcast, if anyone needs a podcast to binge, it should be The Amicable Divorce Expert, because it's really, really fun. We did episodes on celebrity divorces or celebrity legal issues. We did several of those, but you have professionals, all sorts of different professionals in the divorce space on your podcast, letting people know there are so many different routes you can take, so many different types of professionals you can hire that people just don't know about. So here we are. Mediation is a great way to get through your divorce. And obviously, I highly recommend Judy. I highly recommend you. Or Judith. I know you prefer Judith.
No, actually either. Whatever flows better. Everybody has their own feeling.
Everyone has their own feeling. I love your nails. By the way, on YouTube, you can see Judy's nails. Her nails are always done perfectly. She has the best nails, hair, makeup, all of that, but your nails every single time.
Okay, thank you for that. I do pay attention
every time.
Well, thank you. I pay attention to it. And my manicurist wants me to go into different colors. I'm like, no, I do podcasts. I need a color that works with every outfit. And this does. And may I add quickly, just one little thing. I'm a big animal lover. So I watch Animal Planet every Saturday and Sunday. It's on for the cats, so they can watch it too. Well, there's this show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. I love this show. Tia Maria Torres started Villalobos Sanctuary for Wolves out in Desert Hot Springs. So in the Palm Springs area, right? Mm-hmm. And the zoning requirements wouldn't allow her to grow properly. So she moved to New Orleans. And then and pit bulls were such a big issue in New Orleans. I guess there's a lot of gambling, illegal gambling and dog fighting stuff. So she increased her rescue to pit bulls now. She was married to somebody who ended up going to jail. And she was so torn up about it that she said, I'm hiring parolees to work at the sanctuary because they need jobs. So she rescues pit bulls, the most misunderstood breed of dogs, and she hires parolees, the people that nobody else will hire. Okay, she's a saint.
Wow.
Speaking of nails, this woman, I mean, she rescues animals. So she gets under homes. People call her. We've heard there's a dog living under a house. It's abandoned. Come and get it. So she's in the throes of the worst physical situations. But LaMor, if you watch closely, that woman has a manicure in every episode that won't quit. That she always goes to the nail salon. That's why I love this woman.
I love that. I love you. I love her. I love your nails. I love your podcast. I love that you are in the mediation space. I love it all. Thank you so much. So much, Judith, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a treat beyond belief.
My pleasure.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not legal advice that can be relied on. They are based solely on the limited information provided. These opinions do not create any attorney-client relationship. Those seeking legal advice should contact an attorney in the appropriate jurisdiction and practice area.